Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Carolyn Ling, the Director for New England Environmental Justice Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Center. With me today here is Michelle Peedin. She and I are called presenting today. She's from one of our partner organizations, Environmental Protection Network. So I'm going to get started and then Michelle will take over. So what we had decided to do is to probably talk about who could request services. Now, this is very limited in terms of what I'm presenting here. A lot of the information is available on our webpage as well. And our website is called environmental-justice.program.uconn.edu. So if you look at this list, TCTAC in New England is set up to serve underserved, marginalized, disadvantaged communities primarily. We do have communities that have pockets of those sub-communities that we serve as well. So if you look at this list, we serve, broadly speaking, nonprofit organizations, community-based and grassroots organizations, civic organizations, philanthropic organizations, underserved communities, rural and remote communities, faith-based organizations, schools, individuals of underserved communities, disadvantaged businesses, local governments, federally recognized tribes, state recognized tribes, utility providers, and healthcare providers and clinics. So here's a very simple display of what we do as TCTAC. We, first of all, one of our core mission is to help individuals, communities who come to us for technical assistance to go through the entire grant process. And this involves grant preparation and submission. As you can see, we'll help you connect to grant funding sources, help you identify what those are, help you prepare proposals. We don't write proposals for you. We give you tips. We give you technical assistance. We help you, again, with assistance on grant writing, proposal review, and we also help you all the way through after you have received your grant. We help you with grant management support. In terms of technical consultation, we could help you summarize technical documents. We could help you translate documents into plain terms and languages beyond English, depending on what language assistance we have available on hand. We can't do every language, of course. We will help you review and analyze data. We will support technical planning for grants and projects. So some of the grants and projects could be multi-year, 5 years, or even up to 10 years. That's what we're talking about here. In terms of training programs and tools, you are in one of those training sessions, which is a live webinar. We will have recorded videos based learning modules that are yet to come since we have only launched in late fall. We're still really kind of setting our shops, but our technical assistance services have already begun. We will offer workshops on quite a few different topics. If you visit our webpage, you'll realize that our TCTAC is a little bit more unique compared to some other TCTACs in other regions, and that is we have engineers on staff. We will also have other tools and learning materials that we will be developing, such as mapping tools, navigation tools, and so on. So here are the 4 main themes that our TCTAC supports. Number 1, environmental quality. This could include air quality, water treatment, land use, waste management, and in general, environmental sustainability. We support energy justice projects such as infrastructure resources, energy efficiency, clean transit, electrical vehicles, and also micro-mobility projects such as e-scooters and e-bikes and some other micro-mobility options. And broadband access, I want to specifically emphasize broadband access in rural and remote regions and also in tribal communities. Broadband access has been a real enduring problem. So I would really encourage any one of you who is having broadband access issues to consider applying for grants and ask us for assistance as needed. Climate adaptation, flooding, flash flood, weather have been a serious problem in New England, so we could help you with risk assessment. We could help you think about policy analysis, adaptation analysis, environmental and social resilience building if you have projects that support those kind of activities. We are also really want to help people to improve their environmental health, especially we have many rural communities in New England, and therefore a lot of our infrastructure and utility services are quite outdated. So you can see air quality, asthma, transportation pollution, and so on. Here's a simple flow chart that shows you how our TCTAC works. So for example, if you are dealing with poor air quality, indoor quality that impact lower income and vulnerable populations. So vulnerable populations, based on the definition of NIH, is pregnant women, young children, people with chronic conditions, and older adults. So there are 3 arrows going down. So let's start from the left. Do you need help to, for example, conduct a public education campaign? If you do, then you could go to our grant support tab. So everything would go towards the middle column. So if you look at the middle column, you need help to write a grant proposal. So both of those in the middle, the second one and the third tab from the left will lead to submit a technical assistance form, and that form can be found on the grant support tab. And if you go to the right side of the screen, you see if you need help to review a draft grant proposal, same thing, you go down one level, you could submit a grant proposal review form. Again, that could be found on grant support tab. So those two, one on the right, one on the left, if you go down, both still go back at the bottom to the middle, and then eventually, once you have submitted your form, it goes down to how our TCTAC will respond to all inquiries. If you go to the upper right, you could see how you could get in touch with us. Apparently, you already know how. You could call us, you could email us, and of course, you could go to our webpage as well. So here are some of our intake forms. I'm not going to go through each one of those, but you can see that the grant type, there's a link. Contact form, there's a link. Technical assistance request form, there's a link. And grant proposal review form, there's a link. Let's open up the one on the very top quickly, just to show you. So here is the grant support page, and there's grant type. Scroll down a little, you could see different kinds of federal grants, New England region grant opportunities, state and local grant opportunities, and then it's broken out by state at the bottom, and also other types of funding opportunities that include nonprofit, philanthropic, and foundations. So I encourage you to explore each one of these links when you get a chance. And let's open up a form just to show. Let's say, yeah, that one will be fine. So here's a contact us form. It's really simple. Our forms are live. You could fill it out online, but we also allow you to download it and fill it out as Word file so you can save it for your own record. You can see on the very top, there are 2 tabs there. So here, if you go to our webpage, you'll notice that we also serve, of course, we serve all the tribal communities in New England, and we actually have a dedicated tab just for Native nations as well. But in terms of education effort, you already have seen this webpage, so I probably won't go over it again. Basically, we will have webinars and workshops. More and more will be forthcoming. We are also, in the meantime, developing a lot of other materials that yet had to be put online, but each of our webinars can be watched again on YouTube and also through the portal on our webpage as well. So here is an introduction to our partners. We have UMass Boston, and UMass Boston is, we are partnering with the New England Native American Studies Institute, and that is based in Boston. And We also have another partner from University of Southern Maine. And this particular partner is an expert on environmental project funding, technical assistance. And we have New England Rural Health Association. This is our partner when it comes to addressing environmental health. And they already conduct a webinar for us. And then on the right, we have Groundwork USA, which is a national organization that with local chapters. Each of the local chapters is located within urban areas. So Groundwork USA is our urban outreach partner. And then it comes down to Environmental Protection Network. And our co-presenter, Michelle Peedin, is associated with Environmental Protection Network. EPN is a very experienced and well-known organization that actually works with multiple TCTACs across the country. And Michelle specifically works with us. We really appreciate her joining our team. And I think I mentioned earlier how broadband access is a real problem in New England, rural regions, and also tribal communities. I actually highlighted at the bottom, which is in the infrastructure bill. The National Telecommunications Information Administration has a pot of money, $65 billion, that is devoted to addressing this kind of infrastructure problems. So I think at this point, I am handing it over to Michelle.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good afternoon. As Carolyn said, my name is Michelle Sophia. You'll see that we have like 6 Michelles at our organization. So I go by Michelle Sophia. I love my middle name. I use she, her pronouns. And yes, I am the Community Outreach Associate for Region 1 at the Environmental Protection Network, or EPN for short. So the next handful of slides we'll go through are the services and resources that EPN offers all of our communities, and obviously very gladly has partnered with the New England TCTAC. So we also provide services and resources to any of the communities and individuals and community leaders who reaches out for technical assistance to the TCTAC. So this is an overview of what I'll go into just in a little bit more detail in the following slides, but this is really sort of like the big overview of what we offer. Now, just for a little bit of context, because you might not know who Environmental Protection Network is. So we were started in 2017 with really the mission of ensuring that environmental justice communities always have access to unbiased, science-based expertise and information. I think our selling point is that we have a really wonderful network of volunteers who have expertise from working from the EPA. So we call them our EPA alumni, but they're a pretty active network of volunteers. And also our team, and our grants team specifically, works really hard to create resources and continue meeting the needs of communities as they are navigating more recently grant opportunities, but also any other sort of technical assistance needs. So what does that look like? We have the following 5 buckets areas. We have a sam.gov office hours every other Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. I'll go into what that consists of, because we actually break it down even to more specific breakout rooms depending on your need. We also hold one-on-one virtual assistance with, like I said, our network of volunteers, and with us as well, because our team is spread across the country. We have almost 1 person in each of the EPA regions. And like Carolyn said, my colleagues in other regions are also working with TCTACs and, grant makers. And so there's a lot of communication happening across our team. And yeah, some of those one-on-one virtual assistants can include brainstorming, project scoping, project eligibility, and so on. We also we have an AI grant writing modules. Now I'll go into more details in a few minutes, but this is a pilot program that we are trying out, and very much in the conversation of, AI has its pros and cons. We're very aware of that, and it's very much EPN offering this resource and very willing to talk about what that looks like and the limitations of it. But you're welcome to use it if you find it helpful, and also you can ignore it if it's something that maybe you don't feel comfortable with, which we fully understand. And I'll go into more detail about what those grant writing modules look like. We also are offering, this is relatively new, thanks to our grants team, budget support and the calculator. So we have a sort of like a budget for beginners worksheet and presentation, a really easy to follow presentation that my colleague Caitlin put together. And then we also have a calculator. So this is if you're working on a grant, maybe you have a lot of experience and just need an easy to use calculator or like a template, or maybe you're new to writing budgets in a grant proposal and you need a little bit of assistance. And lastly, we have a pre-award and post-award resources resource page. It's a pretty lengthy web page on our website that has a lot of links, but it's true, right? After you've been selected, the work does not stop. So I'll go into more detail about what that web page consists of, but we do have a checklist and resources for selected grantees. Okay, so our sam.gov office hours is every 2 weeks. Now, I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with what sam.gov is. Just in case you're not, sam.gov is the System for Award Management. It's the official website that the US government uses when there's going to be money given to a community or an organization. So you do have to register with sam.gov if you're applying for a federal grant, but we will assist with any sort of updates or renewals, or if you're stuck on something, or if there's any issues. This is what the office hours are for. We can also help you search for entity registration in case maybe you think that you've already registered, but you can't find it. Those are the kinds of assistance that we offer. I think the next slide goes into a little bit more detail. So we have usually 5 breakout rooms. It's a pretty full team hands-on office hours. As you can see, the 5 different breakout rooms ranges from if you're just starting out with the registration for sam.gov all the way to, okay, you've registered, now what, right? And you can explore grants.gov. And so each of my colleagues takes on one of the different breakout rooms. There's a group of people, right? Because it's office hours. And if you need any follow-up assistance, you can connect with your community outreach associate, and we can follow up with any sort of additional information after the office hours. But it's there for sort of a low commitment, show up and see if you can get the help that you need. Our one-on-one assistance, like I mentioned, you'll see on the right, these are all the thematic areas that our EPA alumni volunteers offer. I mean, and it's probably not even, it's not, what's the word? It's not like all of them, right? I mean, there's so many nuances and technical expertise that aren't even mentioned on this page, but these are some of the major ones. And like I said, I am your community outreach associate. So this is sort of just like the who you can contact and the team that's here to support you. We also have 2 people on our grants team. They're our grants specialists. They really have their finger on the pulse of what kind of federal grants are coming out, particularly with the EPA, because that is our niche. And then we have over 800 alumni in our network, but over 200 active alumni who are every day, honestly, working with different organizations and community-based organizations and groups on different tasks and technical assistance requests. So here's a little bit more about our AI grant writing modules, right? So AI is very much in the discourse, and I just want to name that EPN is piloting this to see if it's helpful. I want to name that these AI grant writing modules are really for folks who maybe feel overwhelmed about getting started on writing a grant. Excuse me. These AI modules were created with the idea of community-based organizations applying for the Grant Makers, the Thriving Communities Grant Makers program, to be very transparent. I do think that these modules can be applied to other types of grants. It is not a final copy of your grant submission. It is very much a starting place, so it'll give you maybe a first draft. You know, I've written grants before, and you have sort of information from different areas. You have your website, you have some documents that you can pull information from, and an AI grant writing module, as most of us probably know, is just as good as the information that you feed it. So if you have multiple sources of information, you input it into this generator, and it will create a first draft of one of ours is an organizational overview generator, and the second one is for the actual proposal idea generator. Um, Yes, and like any AI, it has its own AI limitations. You know, we've been talking about what the carbon footprint looks like. We've been talking about um, uh, what's it called? Like private, keeping information private. We have worked with a nonprofit to create this AI modules who specifically work with justice-based organizations. So they're very familiar and very sort of aware of keeping information safe, but AI has its limitations. So I just wanted to name this is a resource that if you're interested, I'm happy to talk more about it. You'll see my email at the end of the presentation. I'll also put it in the chat. And if you'd like to talk more about it, I'm happy to. So we also have the budget support and calculator. We have this budget for beginners worksheet and presentation that I've looked through. It's very easy to use. You'll see some examples on the next slide. Um, and the presentation goes along with it, or you can watch it individually to go through sort of like key concepts, key terms. Maybe you're unfamiliar with some of the language, the vocabulary, and it will go through um, some of those highlighted terms that are important to know. If you'll show me the next slide, please, I can show you some of the sections. So we have a glossary at the top of the guide. We have a step-by-step guide to developing a budget where you'll have sections of it for you to be able to fill in as the guide sort of walks you through the different sections and certain things to think about. You'll also see examples of budgets and what that might look like for you. And again, this is can be a starting place. So if you want to use this and you still have questions, you're welcome to reach out to the TCTAC, and I am one of the partners that can be funneled and referred to through with your questions or with your needs that this might not fulfill. But I do think this is a really great resource for anyone with concerns or maybe wanting a little bit extra support on budget. Yeah, and so this is the calculator. This is for the modified total direct cost and indirect cost calculation. Our grants team have worked really, really hard to put together this calculator. You'll see some examples at the bottom once you have the link in the presentation on that main page with all 5 of the bucket areas. There's a link to this spreadsheet. Yeah, there's been some nuances and difficulties in some of the way that the grant maker specifically, but generally like the federal grants have been like itemizing certain things. So this calculator is ideally to prevent any sort of mistakes or any reasons that your grant might be paused or reviewed any more lengthy. We want to make it as streamlined as possible for you. And again, if you'd like to talk about this more, I'm happy to connect one-on-one in the future. And lastly, the pre-award and post-award resources. So as selected EPA grantees, crossing our fingers, hopefully that's as many people as wants to on this webinar. You are required to sign the cooperative agreements with the EPA, and there are a number of pre-award requirements to be met. So below are some helpful resources. Now this is from my webpage at EPN. This is 11 of the sections that have links, that have more description, that have presentation links, that have like templates and checklists. So there's just a lot of resources information. I'm just going to read through some of them just to keep in mind, right? So I know this can be kind of an overwhelming part of the process because you think once you've submitted the grant application that it's approved and you're good to go. And unfortunately, there's a little bit more to be done, right? Because we're partnering with the federal government. Some of that can include grants management training for applicants and recipients, pre-award certification requirements, information collection request, quality assurance project plans. I know that's been a big one recently. QAPs, it's also an abbreviation for quality assurance project plans. Quality management plans, the Build America, Buy America Act to consider and to be thinking about, the Davis-Bacon and related acts, procurement, preparing for a single audit, additional training and webinars, and then of course the EPA grant basics. That is my whole presentation. Now I'm happy to stay on and yeah, answer any questions with Carolyn. Is there anything else I need to add, Carolyn?
Well, good for now. So I believe we have a survey that you could help us fill out to give us feedback. And the survey link, I believe, has been dropped in the chat room. Am I correct? We could drop the survey link again, please. Okay. So other than that, I want to say that today's webinar is pretty much an overview of an introduction. So if there's such a thing, because on the 29th of January, Michelle Peedin, based on popular request, will be back to do another webinar on the grant process. So for the January 29th presentation, she'll go into more details for different things. But I also want to assure you that this whole grant thing is complicated, as you're aware. We will be doing additional webinars and workshops, as I mentioned before. So what I have done so far is to chronically and systematically introduce each of our TCTAC partners to do a presentation in the first quarter of our launch. And then we will go into very specific subjects such as environmental quality, sustainability, energy justice, but more kind of subject specific type of webinars where experts and our partners will come together to co-present or however we put the team together. So that's our plan. So for now, is the survey link dropped again? Yes. Okay. So I think if nothing else, I will open up our webinar for questions, and we have a moderator who will read the questions out first for us, and then we'll take questions with raised hands. Okay, Jen, please.
Okay, as of now, we have 2 questions queued. From Jean, she says, thank you for these resources. I'm sorry that I don't understand the relationship between the Yukon TCTAC and the EPN. If community orgs want to apply for the grant makers, is it better to sign up for EPN or technical assistance or Yukon TCTAC technical assistance? Thank you.
That's a really good question. So EPN is our external partner. So TCTAC offers technical assistance. So Yukon staff offer technical assistance. So do all our partners, because we can't take all the requests all the time. But we also would like to work with our partners because they have roots in the communities. So those are the main reasons. So if you come to us, you fill out the form, the entire team will go over your request. It starts with me, basically, my team. And then we then decide whether the Yukon team is the best team to address the technical assistance, or do we refer the technical assistance to Michelle or maybe to New England Rural Health Associations. Chances are often we will actually combine resources. So for example, I have a few technical assistant requests now that are being handled by both Yukon and a partner. So that's that. Now, in terms of grantmaker, the relationship between grantmaker and TCTAC is this. Grantmaker gives out money. TCTAC does not really give out money per se, but what happens is that when people contact grantmaker, oftentimes grantmaker will refer them to TCTAC for technical assistance, because we are the one who help people prepare grant proposals and go through the grant process, and also help them manage post-award task. Now, EPN has its own organization, and people also contact EPN for help. But in terms of New England region, TCTAC is set up to serve all the states in New England. Any community organizations, state governments, local governments, nonprofits that need help could contact us, and then we go from there to assemble a team. So in the sense that TCTAC offers a team approach with many resources. So for example, EPN does not have engineers on staff. UConn does. UConn has public health experts on staff. And as a university, in a sense that TCTAC is a house within the university, and the university has a lot of resources. It's very large. We have different expertise that we could offer. I hope that answered your question.
We have a similar question that followed that one that I'll mention, but I believe you just answered it, but in case there's any follow-up. From Cynthia O'Connell, do these two organizations actually provide funding, or do they just point organizations towards federal state grant funding?
Okay, so TCTAC is a technical services center, so we don't offer funding, and EPN also does not offer funding as far as I know. We basically provide technical assistance. In our TCTAC, we might be able, we might have in the future help community organizations to fund in community engagement projects. That is in the planning, but not yet realized yet. So that is in the future. So at this point, I'm not quite ready to discuss that. But primarily, TCTAC and EPN, who's our partner, we provide the kind of services that community organizations need. Oftentimes community organizations are small and you don't necessarily have grant expertise, and that's where we'll come in primarily.
Yeah, if I could just add to the previous question as well, I think it's helpful for me to picture the TCTAC as like a clearinghouse, like you'll come in through there and be directed in the direction that is the best fit for your request. And like Carolyn said, we all will be working together to provide the best team support that we can for your assistance. And then just, yes, correct. We do not give out funding or financial assistance. The past couple of years, EPN has been mostly focused on a lot of the federal money, EJ money that's been coming out of the EPA. We don't know what that's going to look like moving forward, but we're going to continue focusing on technical assistance for other funding opportunities outside of EPN. We do not give out money.
Okay, thank you. From Michael Reddy, Headwaters Trust, NEKO, Agroecology School. Is any portion of that allocable to developing mesh networks rather than broadband? Does that make sense?
Are you talking about the broadband grants or a separate?
Michael, you can come off mute if you'd like to clarify your question. Let me see. Find you. Yep. Go ahead, Michael. I show him as not muted.
You can unmute everyone at this
Yeah,
point.
I think it's probably related to the 65 billion that you mentioned.
Okay, so the 65 billion is related to is creating infrastructure to provide broadband access. So for example, in rural areas, oftentimes people just don't have access to broadband, telecommunication and internet services. And one of the simple solutions is to set up what we call MiFi, micro Wi-Fi in a way. But so far, that has been a model that could work as at least as an interim solution. But ideally, there is enough money to actually bring that service into the communities. Imagine that we live in a world that we're connected very much virtually on a daily basis, including right now. And if you don't have broadband access, that's really challenging for community development, social development, and even receiving other services. So for example, our rural partners, New England Rural Health Association, when they're helping us to go out to do outreach to communities, one of the things they will do is actually print out flyers and print the material to distribute them into the communities directly. at the public libraries or some other public gathering places because a lot of people don't have broadband access. Michael, did that answer your question?
He did put in the chat that he said his microphone isn't working. It was an older question, but it was related to the broadband funding. So, Michael, if you can give us a thumbs up or something, then we'll know that you're satisfied with the answer. Okay, well, we'll move forward and then Mike, he can access the chat. So if I see any further notes from him, I'll bring it back up.
So, Jen, are there other questions in
Yes,
chat?
there's
Okay.
many questions.
Right.
Okay, on to the next. Emily Hutchinson, if we could benefit from some technical assistance with things like the budget calculator or the SAM system, are we able to access those even if it's not an EPA related project? So for example, in Emily's case, she's healthcare.
I see. I believe so. There are other resources from NIH as well. If not, well, it depends on what kind of grant you're applying to. If this is a health grant, is it environmental health or just health grant in general? Is it for example, is it with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation because they do give out money to do community health projects? Could you give me an example if you wouldn't mind?
Okay, I've unmuted myself.
Great.
So yeah, I joined this has been very helpful. Thank you. Sometimes we do things that are environmentally related, but often not. And I got the invitation through the New England Rural Health Association. So that's how I'm here. So I guess the one extreme has nothing to do with an environmental project, but we could find helpful use of the grant calculator. So I just didn't know if we could reach out for assistance in those things, or if we would be better off just going to a different one of our resources for support.
I see. So maybe Michelle, you want to answer that question?
Yeah, that's such a good question. At first, when I read your question, I thought that you were asking about if SAM.gov was applicable for other agencies outside of the EPA, which it absolutely is. But now I think I'm understanding the question better. We at Environmental Protection Network do only work with environmentally related tasks. But that's not to say that I couldn't reach out to some contacts to see if there is technical assistance for something similar. I think that would be my best request or best response.
Okay, so to add
Thank you.
to Michelle's answer, at UConn, we do have plenty of expertise to help community organizations to apply for health-related grants that are related to the environment. If you think about it, well, the environment affects our health, so there's probably a strong affiliation there between health and environment. So let us know if you have a project that's actually when you make a request and the request falls into our service scope. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up, Jesse Safier. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Is there a deadline to request application support for the upcoming Grant Makers program?
I think the deadline is February 14th, right, Michelle?
Yes,
So,
but not to request for technical assistance. There is not a deadline.
so technical assistant, you could ask, you could contact us year round, but if it's a very short deadline, what we could do is do our best to answer your questions and so on. I hope that answers your question. There, for the EJ grants, there are 3 different tiers, right? So it also depends on which tier you're talking about. But combined, our mission is really to do our best and try to be as accommodating as possible to help you guys.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. It does take us, it will take, I don't know what the timeline is that you shared, Carolyn, but for us, it would take a week or two to get things rolling. And just to a reminder, the first deadline, February 14th, isn't the only deadline. It's not the final deadline. It's just the first deadline.
Yes.
Okay. From Cynthia Mendez, how many proposals can an organization submit? For example, if Clean Water Connecticut submits a proposal, can Clean Water Massachusetts also submit a proposal?
Well, that's a good question. At TCTAC, I have established a procedure where we actually get requests from all 6 New England states, and we keep all of your requests confidential, and different organizations do compete for the same, they can compete for the same grant opportunity for sure. So one of the things I am doing going into the next month and beyond is to, in fact, try to build some alliances or inter organization networks where people, community organizations that share the same type of environmental challenges might be able to come together to put together a proposal that would benefit more than one organization. Now, that kind of network building takes time, but I want to also let you know that I'm working with the state government from all New England states, all the state agencies that are related to environmental justice and climate change challenges. I am actually working with them. We have meetings on a regular basis. And from Grantmakers program, they also have a New England anchor organization set up. The anchor organizations is housed in each state has an anchor organization. I believe Stephanie Williams is here. Stephanie, are you able to hear me? She might have muted.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, so Stephanie, we quickly, if you don't mind, try to introduce anchor organizations.
Okay, I'm gonna turn on my video. The anchor organizations, I can't see myself. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the anchor organizations are organizations that were selected between the core teams that will represent each state. There's an anchor organization for each state that has been selected to do outreach and build relationships and capacity building within their states of the region to help underserved organizations apply for these loans. So they are available in each state to assist any organization that has wants or interested in applying for loans. So and I did try to put some information in the chat to assist someone that had a question about where to go to get assistance. But there's an anchor organization for every state of the region, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. So if anyone's interested in getting any assistance in applying for any awards, I would suggest to reach out to me. I can connect you. I will send you any information you need to give you more information about their scope of work that may be helpful. So I mean, just read, and I put my email in the chat for those that might be interested.
So thank you, Stephanie. So TCTAC, for example, works with Stephanie and all the anchor organizations. We meet on a regular basis. We also do site visits. Our goal is just basically we work with Stephanie's anchor organization to outreach and try to engage as many community organizations as possible. So Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind dropping your organization affiliation and your webpage again as the newest in the newest box, chat box, that would be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, just in case this question, Cynthia's question is related to any sort of like proposal reviews or assistance, I just wanted to name that that there's not a like a cap at how many proposal like reviews or assistance you request from TCTAC.
That's right. Thank you, Michelle. I forgot to answer that question. So either way, we work with Grantmaker. That would help answer your question. And anchor organizations affiliated with Grantmaker. Literally, there's a network of people out there trying to outreach to communities and help them. So in my view, this is probably, EJ TCTAC is a new thing. And EPA has chosen to go in this direction to provide technical assistance directly to communities rather than just handing out grants and people don't know how to apply for grants and what to do with the grants. Next question.
Okay. We have a follow-up from Jean. Is technical assistance available from the APN or the Yukon TICTAC for the CGC Municipal Investment Fund and the Energy Improvements in Rural Remote Areas Program? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please, without knowing too much about your project, if you wouldn't mind, please send us a technical assistance request form and we could go from there. And since you're talking about a specific kind of project, it depends on what the nature of the project is. Like I said, we happen to have plenty of engineering resources and we may handle your TA request if you do send one to us internally, or we may partner with one of our external partners, such as EPN.
Okay, a few more questions and then we can go to hands. So from Regina Binder to everyone, how does a potential applicant request a meeting with you? Fortunately, the fiduciary agent under which my project exists has an SAM number.
You already has an SAM number?
Yes.
Okay, well, that makes it easier. And if you're talking about technical requests, technical service requests, once again, please go to our webpage and send us a technical assistance request form. Give us as much detail as you possibly can, and that will save a lot of time going back and forth and emailing. That's what we often do is we get a request and the request is not very clear. So, but that's when consultation begin. We go back to you, you come back to us, and eventually we have a better understanding. But starting from starting from when we begin to respond to you, oftentimes we already start thinking about how to help you. And what eventually happens is maybe a couple of emails exchanges later, we set up a meeting to talk in person.
I couldn't
Virtually.
be more grateful. I mean, I'm looking at the one that you have for the environmental justice for New England. My project is called the Micro Neighborhood Alliance, but I do believe that it has wider range, and I'd love to work with you to realize our vision.
Thank you. Next
Excellent.
question.
Thank you, Regina. Okay, and another question from Michael Reddy. For the Thriving Communities Grant, can project staff be hired from within the organization? Board members? Does there have to be a competitive hiring process?
Okay, so that's a question. So if you, I don't know what your organization is. If you're small and you don't have enough staff to, even after you receive the grant, to do the work, I'm not sure what I'm answering the question correctly, but basically, if you work with us, when we look at the budget and look at your resources, one of the things that we do is to actually do needs assessment and matching your resources with what the grant requirements are. And so in the budget itself, we may say writing these positions to create employment and hire, and oftentimes federal agencies love to see how your grant actually create employment. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Okay, I know he was having trouble coming off mute. So
It also sounded like a question that maybe Stephanie has more information around, but I don't want to put her on the spot again.
No, I'm sorry. You won't put me on the spot. What is the question again?
Okay, it's for the Thriving Communities Grant. Can project staff be hired from within the organization? How about board members? Does there have to be a competitive hiring process?
Well, that sounds like a question that may be for HRIA because it depends on the amount of money that's going to be spent on different positions. So that would be a question I'd like to definitely follow up with if possible.
Yes. Okay. So, and now I understood the question a little bit better. What is competitive hiring or not? It probably depends on what state you live in as well. And also you have to look at the grant cost language. So I think that grant maker could definitely answer those questions as well. And
Michael's putting some feedback in the chat. So he put thanks, yes, and he's working with several organizations with few or no staff, mostly volunteer.
I see. All right. So I would look at the grant call language carefully to see what that means, but both grant maker, they are supposed to know the grant language really well for each of those grant calls. They're responsible for explaining what those things are. And if you need our help, we'll be more than happy to help you go over those documents as well to see what we could do for you.
Wonderful. Okay, next question is from Josh K. Many thanks to the presenters. On page 2 of the Seed Fund RFP, it says that all applicant entities must have a UEI, but page 5 seems to give applicants a choice in requiring a UEI or an EIN. With this in mind, do all applicants need a UEI or does an EIN suffice?
Okay. In my experience, EIM seems to be always required. The other one, I'm not so sure. So that's one thing. I would suggest that you contact the grant officer to have and ask them to clarify that question. Usually, if this is a federal grant, there will be grant officer somewhere. But if it's not, maybe Michelle, you have something to say.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're talking about the seed funding from the Thriving Communities Grant Makers RFP is what it sounds like. And so you can reach out to HRIA. From my understanding, I thought you did need a UEI. The EIN is different. It's a different, like a tax number, I believe, if I remember correctly. But yeah.
So please do contact grant maker to ask them to clarify that.
One last question, then we'll go to the hands. Are these grants from Vanny? Are these grants available to fiscally sponsored organizations?
Could you explain what that means, if you would me?
Yeah.
Great.
Could you also reread the question, Jen, if you don't mind?
Of course. Are these grants available to fiscally sponsored organizations?
So by these grants, do you mean the grant makers? Because TCTAC does offer technical assistance for grants beyond just the Thriving Community grant makers, but I know we've been focused a lot on grant makers.
Danny, if you want to come off mute, you can ask your question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm sorry, we are a fiscally sponsored organization and entering this EJ work more intentionally this year and just wanting to make sure we're in exploratory stage. There's no specific grant we're looking at. We just want to understand what's available to us as a fiscal sponsored organization. Our lead nonprofit org has a SAM, I think, and then a bunch of other IDs or accreditation for the big grants. We don't, but just want to make sure that I've seen other grants who say or who like make note if we're fiscally sponsored, we can't apply. So I just want to make sure if that makes sense for us to continue to explore the EJ work as a small grassroots org.
Yeah, I think Stephanie might have more information, but from my understanding from attending a couple different grant makers presentations, that you are eligible.
But if you're part of a larger organization, you may want to think about what other arms of your organization may also be looking at the same applications. Stephanie, if it's something to add, please do.
Oh, yeah, no, I was going to say, as long as the fiscal organization has all the credentials, I don't see why they wouldn't be eligible. We do have a few fiscal organizations that represent others. So I would say yes. But again, I think it's really important that you reach out and go on to the Environmental Justice New England website, because there's videos, there's webinars, and a lot of your questions will be answered if you visit the page.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes.
Thank you. We have one very patient hand that's been up for probably the last 10 to 15 minutes. Daryl Blanco, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, and then we're at the hour. Just giving you a heads up on timing.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all the information, and I'll try to make it quick. So the first thing is, this is obviously my first time, meeting with you guys. Is there a cost for the technical assistance or any assistance that you will be providing to whoever is interested in getting assistance through you guys to write grants?
Okay, the good news is everything is free. We provide totally free service.
Great. And the other quick question is, I know that Sophia, I'm gonna call you by your middle name because my daughter's name is Sophia, and I love that name too. You're having a workshop on the 29th, but in the meantime, I'm trying to make sure that if I'm able to meet the February 14th deadline. What should we do? I haven't done anything yet as far as reaching out to you guys or anything. What should be my next step to get ready? Because obviously I don't want to wait until the 29th, given the fact that the 14th of February is the deadline.
I mean, Carolyn, please, I know that you have such a wealth of information. My suggestion would be to read through the RFP if you haven't yet, to take a look at the Grantmakers webpage, like Stephanie has suggested. There's a lot of information on there. There's videos, there's a lot of like an FAQ section that you can read through. So a lot of your questions will probably be answered pretty quickly. And then after that, if you're still needing assistance, then reaching out and submitting the technical assistance intake form through the TCTAC website. I think the link has already been included in the chat, would be the next step. Yeah, you can start as long as you're eligible and everything fits and your project or idea fits the criteria, then we can be of support. Carolyn, do you have anything to add?
Perfect answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you mind just putting the link again when you get a chance in the chat box?
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
We are now 3 minutes over the hour. I thank everyone for attending this webinar. I really appreciate it. Please do feel free to fill out the survey, and we hope to see you on January 29th. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.